Welcome. This video is going to be about Kimi K3 versus DeepSeek version 4 Flash 0731. Kimi K3 is one of the largest and most capable models available to date. However, I can't recommend it for use by any programmers. It's not because it's no good, it's just that the allowance given to users is not sufficient or its costs are too high for any meaningful use. Okay, here's me using the Allegretto $39 a month plan. I'm starting two Kimi K3 sessions, both on low thinking, and both will talk to each other using a feature in my Pi extension. We are starting out with 47% of my 5-hour allowance used and 35% of my weekly allowance used. The top one will be working on a virtual machine project, managing Docker, Nginx, MySQL, etc. The bottom one will be working on my Pi extension, which mostly comprises of TypeScript, Node.js, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'm not giving them particularly complex tasks to do. They are mostly deletion, cleanup, and to ensure documentation is updated with the changes that have been made. I don't expect either instance of Kimi K3 to fail, as the model is more than capable of working things out, and its knowledge base is fairly up to date. All the same, I injected some of my Pi extension's codex resources into the system prompt. These are like skills, just with issues and solutions included. I find it's best not to give the model an issue to work out, as its thinking is a context eater, and its thinking times can take a painfully long time, even when set to low. Not to mention the servers are painfully slow. I've not seen any service unavailable errors in about a week now, but it's close. Let's see how it got on. Okay, they both failed. Not due to Kimi K3's ability to get the job done, but due to having a ridiculously low usage quota, or due to how fast that quota is used. The instance of Kimi K3 working on the server with Docker, etc. made a lot of work out of a few simple tasks, but it got there in the end, getting cut short during the documentation phase. The instance working on the Pi extension was doing good, if not a bit slow. We started with 47% of my 5-hour usage quota used and 35% of my weekly quota used, and ended with 100% of my 5-hour usage quota used and 47% of my weekly quota used. 53% of my 5-hour usage quota on the Allegretto plan was just not enough, and I had to wait for the 5-hour window reset to prompt both to resume. The context window for both was just under 10%, and the cache hit rate was mostly in the 90s, but there were times, even towards the end, where it was below 20%. But it was mostly in the 90s, so I don't think that was the issue. Which brings me back to its overthinking and second-guessing issues and the allowance given to subscribers. I estimate it would have taken about 17 to 20% of my weekly quota and around 80 to 90% of my 5-hour quota. The Allegretto plan is not enough for daily use, maybe if you're doing very simple tasks and not that many of them each week possibly, but there's no way this could be used for more than 2 to 2.5 days without hitting your weekly allowance limit. The Allegretto plan is equivalent to OpenAI's $20 a month plan, just that it costs more, you get less usage time, is a lot slower, and you can get network outages. It's just not worth it. Okay, let's step it up. Now I'm going from the $40 per a month Allegretto plan to the $100 per a month Allegro plan. For this, I'm going to start two instances of Kimi K3 to generate structured hierarchical documentation via a feature called docx from my Pi extension. This basically assembles a prompt based on the type of project you're working on and gives it to the model to generate the documentation. The projects they will be generating documentation for are the ones from the previous test: the Docker, Nginx server project, and my Pi extension project, just with all their documentation stripped out, leaving nothing but the agents and README Markdown files. I've also removed the Git folder so they don't take a peek at the Git repository associated with their projects. I'm starting out with 16% of my 5-hour quota used and 34% of my weekly quota used. About 8 to 10% of my 5-hour quota was used completing the previous failed test on the Allegretto plan. Let's see how they get on. Okay, they both managed to complete their tasks this time, so that's good. However, it took 1 hour to finish, use 70% of my 5 hours usage quota, bring it up to 85%, which is a level I don't feel comfortable using it for anything, because it will most likely hit my 5-hour usage limit and stop mid-task, and it used 13% of my weekly usage quota. The context windows were 21.1% for the instance of Kimi K3 working on the Docker project, and 29.5% for the instance of Kimi K3 working on the Pi extension project. But it done it. It did take a long time, but the task was not a small one, but wasn't a massive one either. This is a good test for context window and cache usage, as it has to read every file in the project before it can write the hierarchical documentation. The irony is it didn't follow the instructions of docx quite right, as it started generating the documentation during project exploration, and then paid the price for it with 20 minutes of changes at the end. So, is the Allegretto plan usable? And who's it for? I've been using the Allegro plan for nearly a month now. I have just under a week left. I find I get about 3 days at most out of using nothing but Kimi K3 each week. Luckily, I've been testing others this month also, and had them to finish off where Kimi K3 got cut short due to the rate it goes through the usage limits. It's never a good idea to try and resume what the AI was doing yourself. It's going to be much easier to wait for the 5-hour usage limit to reset. Even though I typically make a plan and tasks markdown files before setting an AI going, it still doesn't make it fun to pick up where they left short. The AI may mark tasks as in progress or complete, but there's a lot in the thinking which you wouldn't know about if you weren't reading it. And sitting down backseat driving, reading all the thoughts of the model while it works, defeats the purpose, I think, as I could be working on something else while it takes care of the task I've given it. It's best to wait for the 5-hour window usage limit to reset and prompt the model to carry on. So who's Kimi K3 for? For developers and vibe coders wanting a model to use all week with complex and long tasks, this is not it. You will get more room on the $200 a month Vaves plan, but at that price point you're better off going with OpenAI or Anthropic, and you won't have all the server issues or be watching the model struggle at 3 tokens per second. Although I have seen many issues with Anthropic Claude with service unavailable in the past, I have never seen them with OpenAI, but I've not used Claude in a long time. For developer and vibe coders who want an AI that they will use lightly all week with small to medium tasks and are careful with their context windows, switch models when they don't need the big K3, then yes, this will be fine for you. Now for the David versus Goliath moment. Let's see what DeepSeek version 4 Flash can do on the same projects I ran the docx test on. DeepSeek version 4 Flash absolutely knocked it out of the park. It finished in 14 minutes for the Docker Engine X project and 21 minutes for the Pi extension project, and cost a bank-breaking 25 cents, and its cache hit rate blew K3's hit rate out of the water. I did compare the hierarchical documentation generated by both K3 and DS4 Flash, and to be honest, I actually preferred DeepSeek's version. Neither of them missed anything, despite coming to different hierarchical tree ID conclusions, but it was all there, just sometimes nested more or not so nested. I would like to point out that DeepSeek's knowledge is not up to date, and it does have its own flaws and strange behaviors. When discussing planning with DeepSeek version 4 Pro, it does like to just go off and start doing things. And with the speed it runs at, it starts creating things pretty quickly, so be ready on that abort key. And it's even faster again with version 4 Flash, however with V4 Flash this doesn't happen as much. Obviously DSV4 doesn't have the knowledge the big K3 has, but its thinking and reasoning is quite possibly better. But as I do with every model I use, I inject my Pi extension's codex resources into the system prompt. They are like skills, just they come with rules, issues, and solutions. I find it very useful and it beefs up DeepSeek version 4 Flash considerably. But I still wouldn't use DeepSeek for Java or C# desktop applications or Juice Framework C++ plugin development and other such things. Well, that's a wrap. Hope you find this information useful. Code on.